We are in Gospel of Mark, chapter 2, and we will start the next passage. It is verse 18 through verse 22.
The disciples of John and of the Pharisees were fasting. Then they came and said to him, "Why did the disciples of John and of the Pharisees fast, but your disciples did not fast?" And Jesus said to them, "Can the friends of the bridegroom fast while the bridegroom is with them? As long as they have the bridegroom with them, they cannot fast. But the days will come when the bridegroom will be taken away from them, and then they will fast in those days. No one sews a piece of unshrunk cloth on an old garment, or else the new piece pulls away from the old, and the tear is made worse. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins, or else the new wine bursts the wineskins. The wine is spilled, and the wineskins are ruined. But new wine must be put into new wineskins."
Okay, thank you. Your first impression?
Okay, the disciples of John and of the Pharisees were fasting. So I see two groups of disciples. Okay. The disciples of John and of the Pharisees were fasting. So we had two groups of people fasting, I think. And, John the Baptist. Okay. And the Pharisees were also. And then they came and said to him, "Why?" I'm thinking the they is probably not the disciples of John, but maybe I'm wrong. But just knowing those old Pharisees, I'm sure they were the first ones off the box to ask him, "Well, why is this happening?" And but your disciples did not fast. So they're at very least trying to stir up trouble, and I'm guessing, and at most they're trying to trap him in some way. And Jesus, of course, doesn't answer them directly, but answers them with the parable, as he often does when they try to have him put his foot in his mouth, which he won't do. So that's where I'm at so far.
Okay.
And let other people try.
Okay, all right. So basically, we have three groups of disciples here. The John's disciples, the Pharisees' disciples, and Jesus's disciples.
Right.
All right. And the question is about fasting, as you correctly saw it. And absolutely true. Jesus replies with a parable here. All right.
Can I ask a question?
Huh?
If you take new wine and you put it in old wineskin, doesn't that make the new wine bad?
You know that sparkling wine that you often get that has carbonation in it, maybe no alcohol, but just carbonation, and it might burst the seams on a wineskin that's old, possibly?
Yeah, it will break the skins.
And if it bursts the skins, it's going to fall on the ground, and then it would be bad.
Yes, that's true. Okay. It will destroy. Both things basically will be destroyed. Am I correct?
Yes.
Almost. I can't afford new stuff, so I rebuild old stuff.
Let's put it together here. So Jesus says about cloth, a new piece of cloth to an old garment. Nothing will, it's not going to work. And he also talks about new wine in the old wineskins. That's not going to work either. For both things. Is it what your question was about, Brother Chris?
Yes. I mean,
Okay.
if you go back to doing what you did before.
Well, let's think a little bit in a different direction. It might help more. So the first question is, why would Jesus start talking about old garment and old wineskins if he was asked about fasting? You see, he basically told them why his disciples, his own disciples, would not be fasting. What's the idea? How did you understand the idea? Let's see that first. Why would not his disciples be fasting?
Did they need to?
Did they need to?
Because he's not dead yet.
Okay, let's go through his own words. Okay, he says, can the friends of the bridegroom fast while the bridegroom is with them? So put it in normal words and tell me why Jesus' disciples never fasted. Who is the bridegroom? Who are the friends in this parable?
Jesus is the bridegroom,
Jesus is the bridegroom, okay? He's the main one.
and the friends are the disciples of Jesus.
And the friends are those disciples who are going with him. So what is the answer Jesus gives to those who ask why his disciples never fast? Why?
Because they were with Jesus, and that was what I said.
Because they were with Jesus. Now open that up, okay? Why would not they fast? You say, because they were with Jesus. So what's the problem? Why would not I fast if I am with Jesus?
Were they saved already?
Of course, they're saved. Yes, very good. Let's continue reading. As long as they have the bridegroom with them, they cannot fast. So why cannot they fast if Jesus is with them? Let's imagine that Jesus is right here in a visible form amongst us, day by day by day by day. Why would not we fasting?
Because as long as we are with him, which is for a very long time, then we would not be able to fast.
But why? Let me ask you another question. What is fasting for?
That's what I was going to ask you. Why do people fast?
Oh,
And-
good. Okay, let's ask that question. Why do people fast?
You fast to honor or to recognize a certain time or a certain event.
But when you fast, don't you fast because if a person fasts, they're doing it because they want to get closer to God. God, please help me. I'm going to fast for a day. And you fast and you pray. And you're trying to get closer to God, aren't you?
Absolutely. That's the idea.
You don't need to fast because he's right there with you. So you don't need to fast because he's with you. So you don't need to.
I think the hard part was when you say, why cannot they fast? Anybody can fast anytime they want. So the word cannot, I don't think applies. I think, why would they not want to? Or why would they not need to? Because he's there.
Because he's there. Let's put it together, what you just said, okay? Fasting, if we are talking about religious matters, okay? Because it's not about health issues, nothing. We're talking about religious. Christianity, the descendants of Abraham, and all these biblical things, okay? So why would people fast? To make sure that either they are being good to God so he can answer to them, or they promised something and they fast to fulfill the promise. Fasting through the biblical times was always about getting God's attention. getting God's attention. And Jesus says, my disciples even cannot fast. And Brother Dan, I would say cannot is fine here, because when Jesus
Okay.
is right next to you, you just cannot fast. You're just talking to him and talking to him,
Yeah.
and you are eating from his hands and you're talking to him again and again.
Can you explain, maybe now or later, you just brought up something interesting, and I just forgot it. We fast to get God's attention. It's like waving a SOS flag. But can't we get God's attention without fasting? He's not that petty that he would not look on us in our need when we didn't fast?
Absolutely
Is it?
wonderful. Wonderful. I've been talking from the point of view of the Jewish people. They would be fasting to get God's attention, to get God's approval. But we will be reading a passage, a whole chapter from the prophet Isaiah, when God will tell them, that's not what I meant when you want to fast. But the question which Pharisees and even John's disciples ask is about why Jesus, it's out of control here. Your disciples eat and eat and eat. We are fasting here, trying to get God's attention. We are fasting, trying to get better and better, and your disciples don't do anything. Why?
It's even more hilarious than that, because there's God right there.
Exactly. And because they do not get the main point, that's why Jesus is speaking to them, talking to them through a parable. He says, okay, when the bridegroom is here, what it means? It means that everybody is happy. And the friends of the bridegroom are so happy they cannot even fast. They're eating together with the bridegroom. Does he promise that they will start fasting?
Yes.
Come on. Yes, of course. But the
And
days will come when the bridegroom will be taken away from them. And then they will fast in those days. Is Jesus Christ taken from us?
No.
Yes.
Wow, we have really different answers here.
Because Jesus was crucified. He was physically taken away from us.
But he was resurrected.
He was resurrected, and he ascended back into heaven to be with God.
So physically, he's not here right now, Brother Chris.
But he is with us always, isn't he?
Absolutely, but not physically.
But is there a difference? I mean, there is a difference, but is there a difference?
Well, that's a very good question. So,
Okay.
where is Jesus Christ in physical form right now? Where is he?
He's in heaven.
In heaven. Can you see him?
No.
Can you see him as those disciples could see him, could touch him, could hear his voice?
No.
No. So he is taken from us. But you are right, he is not. Why would you say that he is not taken from us?
Because when you pray to him, when he's with us, his spirit is with us always. When you pray to him, when you have faith in him, he's with you, isn't he?
Very good, very good. But he's with us, not in his physical form. He is with us through his Holy Spirit.
Okay.
And yes, of course, you talk to him, but can you hear his voice?
Sometimes, yes.
Very good. Can you see him?
No.
No. We have a very clear picture right now. In physical form, we cannot see Jesus as his disciples saw. We barely can hear his voice, though he does speak to us. And we can be sure that he is with us. But should he be coming back, Brother Chris?
Should he? Yes.
Yes, so in his physical form, he should come back. It will be his second coming. So both of you are right. Let's pay attention to the parable. Jesus says that, you see, right now I'm with them. So they don't need to fast at all. But when I'm not with them in my physical form, I am doing my job in the heavenly temple. I am not right here with them physically. They will need to fast. The only problem is, why would they need to fast? What will be the purpose for them fasting?
To stay close to God.
To stay as close as possible to him, because he's up there in his physical form, Brother Chris, and we are down here in our physical form. So the connection is not like it was for the disciples over there.
Okay.
Okay? But when he comes back, Jesus comes back. Are we going to be fasting?
No.
No, of course, because he will be here even in his physical form with us. Everybody will see him and everybody will be able to hug him. If I ask you, Brother Chris, is Jesus with you? Your answer, yes, of course. Through the Holy Spirit, through his representative, Jesus is right here with me. And by the way, even in your head, but in his physical form, like the second Adam, he is in the heavenly temple right now.
Okay.
Let's understand, why would Jesus continue with that a piece of unshrunk cloth and old garment, and a piece about new wine and old wineskins? Why? What's that about?
Wait a minute, you just hit me with something. I didn't see it before. Unshrunk cloth. That makes all the difference.
Can you
That
explain?
make- yeah, well, yeah, if you have a pair of new blue jeans and you buy them, if they're not pre-shrunk, you want to buy them large so that when they ultimately shrink, which they will, so you do it on purpose, and then they fit you. Great. Now you can cut out swatches of that denim and put it pretty much anywhere you want. But if you're trying to patch a pair of, let's say, denim clothes with a patch of denim that isn't shrunk, then you're going to have problems.
Absolutely.
Right, Paul?
Correct.
Especially if the cloth is very old and ready to fall apart. That piece will basically take it apart.
Right, which is why you're trying to repair it to begin with, because it's old. Or
Okay.
falling apart.
Okay. It's very interesting what Jesus says here. You see, the piece will be shrinking and taking everything apart. But when he speaks about the wine actually will be growing up and taking everything apart. So both are very dangerous.
But what he's doing, I think, is interesting. He's using the natural world that he created, that they understand, to explain things in a way they can understand it.
Amen. But my
If they
question
were
is,
amenable to understanding.
my question is, what should they understand? Can you give me the idea why would Jesus give it to them?
I can do all but that.
Okay. And I'm not letting you go unless you give me any normal explanation here. Pray.
Miny mo.
Okay. If I understand it, Jesus is promising a new way through him. Using the old way may not fit into his new way of leading us into heaven.
Okay. And he is giving us new clothes also. New way, new wine, new clothes,
A
Right.
new garment.
new garments, yes. And
Uh,
he says you cannot put it together, new garments and old garments. New
What did he say
wine and
about
old
drinking the
wine.
wine until you drink it with me in heaven?
But here, when he was talking about that new wine, Jesus was referring to the real wine, physical wine.
well, the
Yes.
new wine in this case would be if you put new wine, which is still basically in a processing mode, into an old wineskin that is already shrunk from
The previous one.
the previous wine, when the new wine is still fermenting, so to speak, it's going to expand and make the old wine sack. The old wine sack won't stretch to fit the new wine. Therefore, the seams will break.
The old sack always will break.
Right.
Always. Because
feel
it's
so.
not ready for such pressure inside. Okay, let's come back to the main idea. We need to understand what our Lord wants to tell us here. These are three parables. This is the first parable about the bridegroom and his friends. This is the second parable about the garment. And the third one is about the wine. How many groups of disciples are presented here? How many?
3.
3. And it's very interesting. We have 3 parables. I don't think it's a coincidence. We definitely see there are 3 groups of disciples. The disciples of John, that's the first group. The disciples of the Pharisees, that's the second group. And the disciples of Jesus, that's the third group.
All right. So what they have in common is he's talking about something new and old. As Paul basically mostly unpacked it, and so did Chris, an old way and a new way.
So
Right?
it's very interesting. Yes, we have, and Jesus gives us 3 parables, 3 groups, 3 parables. The first parable about Jesus's group we already understood, kind of. So what if the next 2 parables are about the next 2 groups?
So
I can see
21 would be about John's group.
Disciples of John and disciples of Pharisees, yeah?
Okay. So why is John represented by the cloth and because John didn't have much of a cloth except in a very simple
Well,
way.
be careful here. It's very
I'm trying to be.
possible, yeah, it's very possible they are not represented by these precise parables, but each parable has something to do with them.
Okay.
You see, the main idea, 2 parables for one idea. Am I correct? One idea, 2 parables. The idea is something new does not connect to something old. Both parables are about that. And we see 2 groups, definitely the disciples of John and the disciples of Pharisees. Looks like it's about them, because the third parable, the first, I would say, the first parable is about Jesus's disciples. What is the idea Jesus wants to tell about the disciples of John and the disciples of Pharisees?
No, I think the yellow says it all. I just can't put it together yet.
So let's put the yellow here. So your disciples, you need to connect all 3 parables together and see the difference between 2 and 1. And that's how, let's put these yellow ones. and look at three parables all together.
So the disciples of Jesus are the new cloth. The disciples of Jesus are the new skin.
Wow.
And then the disciples of John and the Pharisees are the old of both. Therefore, trying to put them together creates a conflict.
Ah, wow. Cool, huh?
Yeah, that is cool.
That's
Yeah.
absolutely cool.
Once you put it, once you set it, separated it out, I could see
See, this is a visual thing sometimes.
Absolutely. Bible is very visual. Yes. That's why I always call everyone, just take a pencil, take a piece of paper and draw everything and try to make pictures, and it will help. It definitely will help. Yeah. Now let's make a conclusion here. We did not come to the conclusion, the whole conclusion yet, but you already got the idea. So Jesus says, the disciples of John and the disciples of Pharisees have a problem. And what's that problem? You see, it's very strange. Even the disciples of John have a problem. Though John was God-sent man, that's John the Baptist, and he was really teaching people correctly and doing everything correctly. And somehow Jesus says, they are not good yet. I would understand it about the disciples of Pharisees, but why would Jesus tell about the disciples of John that they are not ready yet?
because they didn't come with Jesus. They didn't go with Jesus. They came with John.
They stayed with John.
Right.
John was preparing a way for Jesus. So his job was to point at Jesus and to say, here is the Lamb who will take all the sins of the world. And John has done that. He did it correctly, perfectly, wonderfully, but not everyone listened. And those who listened, they went to Jesus and became the disciples of Jesus. This is the main idea, you see. If you are not a disciple of Jesus, if you are still a disciple of Sasha Lance, for example, or some prominent pastor, maybe, whoa, that's a very difficult thing, because you may be called an old garment or an old wineskin, because you have to become a disciple of Jesus.
We see this happening throughout the stage of the reformers. The people from Luther were happy to get the light from Luther and stay there. The people from John and Charles Wesley were happy to get that light and become Wesleyans. Then we had Calvins. Then we had, Huguenots and Adventists, and Adventists were happy to be Adventists until the Lord called them to be more. No, we don't want to be. We're happy where we are.
Yep.
And now we have what we have now is and stopped where they shouldn't have stopped, I guess.
Yeah, Adventists stopped at being disciples of John. That's the problem of our church right now. And some Adventists, yes, they are the disciples of Pharisees already. And Jesus says, guys, either you are my friends or you will be destroyed. You see, the second two parables are about being destroyed. By the way, garments which we're talking about is the righteousness of Christ. What is the old garment represent?
The unrighteousness of Satan.
The unrighteousness of you and me and everyone else. We were born in unrighteousness. This is the old garment. Can you imagine? Jesus comes to you and says, here's a little piece of really good, shiny, heavenly made garment, a little piece. Let's put it upon you. You will be torn down by that piece. Jesus says, I'm not doing it. Either you come to me, become my friend, and you have the whole garment, or you just have your old one and you die with that old one, and that's it. And you die forever. And it's the same with the wine. What does wine represent in symbolic meaning of biblical symbols?
The blood of Christ.
Blood of Christ, but right now that symbol doesn't fit the parable, so we need to look for another symbol, which is together with the blood of Christ. The other one is the teaching. Wine represents teaching, especially in the book of Revelation. You see that awful woman who is a harlot, she is giving her wine to all the nations. So she's teaching with that wine everyone. But Jesus says, I have fresh wine for you, not even fermented wine for you. That's his teaching.
Well, you mentioned what does the old wine represent, and again, you touched on it twice, at least once, and that the spiritual wine of the harlot, okay, the false doctrine. But physically, what did you remember? You asked, what did you remember about the wine? A headache and a ruined life.
Yes, if it is fermented, if it is not fermented,
yes,
it
absolutely.
is healthy drink, one of the healthiest drinks ever. Let's put it together now. Jesus says, if you do not become my friend, if you do not become my disciple, strict my disciple, without anyone in between me and you, I'm not even giving you the new wine. That's true teaching. I'm not even giving it to you, because it will become fermented in you, and it will blow you up. And many people did that awful thing. They would take the teaching of Jesus Christ, his true doctrine, they would take it without becoming Jesus's friend, and that doctrine will start fermenting in them, and the results are really bad. Because only Jesus can keep that new wine perfectly new, without fermenting process. All right? So, what does it mean to become friends of the bridegroom, friends of Jesus? It means that you gave up on your old garment and you gave up on yourself. Wineskin. You are that wineskin. Give up on yourself. To be in the right church, it's good, okay? That's very good. But it doesn't save you. Only being a friend of Jesus Christ, that's the way of being saved.
We know that as a spiritual way of reading the Bible, but some people say, well, I could be a friend of Christ. That's kind of like saying you got a neighbor and they have a backyard and they grow flowers and they woodworking and they make healthy food and they don't smoke and they don't drink. So you can be a friend to them. You're just going to walk by on occasion, say hi with a big cigar in your hand and a tumbler full of wine or beer. And can you really be a friend to that person? No, because if you came and sat with them, your behavior would be out of place and, ridiculous, right?
Yes, absolutely. But let's make it wider, that picture you just started talking about. Do you know how to recognize a true friend of Jesus Christ? and untrue friend of Jesus Christ. That's very easy. True friend of Jesus Christ wants Jesus Christ to come back so much that that person will do anything Jesus Christ tells him or her to do. So Jesus can come as soon as possible. That's the true friend. And of course, that person will keep Jesus' commandments because Jesus wants us to keep his commandments. And that person will go to tell everyone about Jesus because he loves Jesus so much that how can I keep quiet? And so on and so on. And that person will do anything to hasten the coming of Jesus Christ. I believe that many Christians are good Christians, but they are still disciples of John. And Jesus is very concerned for them. And he wants them to realize that he wants to come back. And they have to, if they go to be fasting, they have to be fasting correctly. And next time we will stop at
Sister,
yes.
I am very unaware of a lot of things. So please, if you can quickly, why did we stop at John and not continue as a church?
Yes, because we have a tendency to be leaning upon other humans. And the church has tendency to become instead of Christ. For example, we come to the church, especially when we're young, very young, spiritually, we come to the church and we listen to everyone and we try to understand what everyone says and we accept everything they say. We don't understand that they can make mistakes and even some of them can make special mistakes purposely. And we're happy that we are in the true church and so on and so on. And the church represents, spiritually, represents John the Baptist. The church is the one who baptizes people and takes care of people. But as we see from the type, John the Baptist was taken away, and all the disciples had to decide for themselves. Either they stay alone for themselves or they go to Jesus, who was pointed as the one who has to be the only connection for you. So please go to Jesus and try to ask him what it means, why it means, and he's ready to communicate to you. Become his friends. The more you do his will, as he wants it to be done, the more he can open for you because you are in tune with his intentions.